folks, and welcome to our presentation today on the overview of the different ways to measure body fat. My name is Christopher Carr, also known as Natural Body Man. Have you ever found yourself at the grocery store and you saw a scale and you said, well, the last time I weighed 142 and today I'm 5 pounds heavier. Am I more fat or not? And this is where taking body fat comes into play. Because when seeing your overall body composition in terms of how much fat mass you have compared with how much fat-free mass you have, how much lean body mass you have, using a scale usually isn't the best predictor. It just measures the amount of weight you it doesn't take into account the differentiation in fat mass and lean body mass. Now, you may have visited some big chain gyms. A lot of these big chain gyms, possibly LA Fitness and a number of others. I know I've been to an LA Fitness before, and they use something very similar to these. And this is a way that they use to detect how much body fat you had, making the assumption of using electricity to detect how much fat you have in your thumbs, and that would average it out for your whole body. Okay? This is another device. It's a nice device. It was a very nice present from a very nice person that is again uses, I believe it is electricity, because it says here that if you have a pacemaker, don't use this. So pacemakers use electricity to charge the SA node in the heart and the right atrium. Anyways, so this right here again uses electricity. And my intention, what you get out today, is to be able to depict ways that are more valid and more reliable and more accurate in measuring your body fat. And we'll look at the several of the common methods used today. Who knows what we'll have in the future. The most common method in measuring body fat today, and simple to use, affordable and cheap, is the skin caliper method, measuring skin folds. Okay, as we see right here. Number one. Its accuracy is really about second best out of the major ways to test body fat. Usually has a fluctuation at 3.5% over or under. And the better the experimenter gets at taking the body fat, the more precise the results. You want to make sure you use the same technique in the same way, the same methodology of taking each caliper reading. Of saying, for example, if you were going to take one from the umbilicus, they would say 2 inches to the right of the umbilicus, take a vertical fold and get your calipers and go 1 centimeter below, pinch as much as you can, then take it halfway up and hold for a second or two. And he uses the same methodology of taking 1 centimeter away from each picking and bringing it halfway up and holding it for a second or two. And that is an accurate way, a methodology of continually getting the right site. And it's always good to mark the sites too. Okay? And you would also use measuring right here for some sites if you were going to measure on the triceps from the acromion to the olecranian process and then take halfway. So you need to be fairly skilled with these. And also, the skin caliper method assumes that your superficial body fat that is above your muscle mass is a representative figure of all your body fat. So basically anything that's underneath your skin is your body fat. Now, as we have found that the lighter our skin, the more our body fat is right underneath our skin. But the darker your skin color, the more likeliness that you have body fat that is in deep underneath the muscle, or at least not right underneath the skin, and it's more in deep. So, take that to note. Now, the second method of taking body fat is the gold standard. It's the most valid, reliable way of taking body fat, and that is the hydrostatic weighing. Now, I don't have a hydrostatic tank right here right now, but the supplies for this would basically be a bunch of water, a pool, or a dunking tank, and a device to lock the individual in, where they won't touch any of the perimeter of the tank, anything on the tank, and basically they would duck their head in the water, so their head is underneath the water, and exhale all the air from their lungs, taking as much residual volume, which is the air that is inside the lungs that usually never leaves, totally exhaling it, because that could be a source of air. If you haven't totally exhaled all the air, then that brings a higher source of air. And basically, hydrostatic weighing uses the volume of water to determine exactly, how dense you are, what your fat mass is, your fat-free mass. It uses Archimedes' principle. And basically, Archimedes' principle states that an object, the density of an object is related. You could say equal, but it's better to say related. The density of an object is related to the amount of water or air it displaces. Okay? So, the more dense an object, the less volume the thing is going to increase, the less the water level will rise. But the less dense an object, the more space it takes up. And the more space it takes up, the more the water level will rise. Okay? Now that's kind of complicated. You may want to rewind and play this a couple times. Okay? Now, before we go on to the next method, I'm going to skip over here to the bod pod, because the bod pod uses the same law. It uses Archimedes' principle. And it uses it with air pressure, though, instead. And basically it discerns that in the bod pod, you go inside a small little tube, looks like you're an astronaut. You wear very tight clothing, and because it takes into account how much space your body takes up. And for a larger person, the air pressure is greater because your body takes up this much space. But for a smaller person, the air pressure is less because you have more space in the bod pod. So it uses the same principle, Archimedes' principle. And some sources of air, basically, are that if you have several people in the room, that could play a difference in the atmospheric pressure in the room, which will make a difference in the pressure in the bod pod. Whether if you have doors open, or if you have a door open, or a couple doors open within a couple hundred feet of the facility, that will also make a difference too, especially within the same room. So these play a major role, and it's not that valid or reliable of a test, the bod pod. It is not. But these three are the Skinfolds, the hydrostatic weighing, which is the gold standard, and DEXA, which is dual energy X-ray absorptiometry, is actually considered even more valid and reliable than the hydrostatic weighing. But it only does sections of a body. It takes X-rays, which are low-dose X-rays, like 1/10 the actual X-ray radiation hazardness to the skin. And basically, it takes sections and pictures, and it's able to assess what is fat mass, what is bone, what is muscle, what is ligament and tendon, what is lean body mass. It's very good. And one day it may outplace this, but it is very expensive. The hydrostatic is very expensive too. The bod pod is very expensive too, and it's not that reliable yet. Other measures are bioelectrical impedance. Okay? Now this uses electricity, and it assumes that electricity is a poor conductor of fat. So the less electricity you hear, then it assumes you have more body fat. It is affected by the amount of food that you've eaten within the last 4 hours, and the amount of exercise that you've done within the last day. And it's also affected by your menstrual cycle. And it's really not that valid or reliable. And it uses a machine, a little gun machine, and it's expensive. Another tool to measure is the near-infrared reactance. And that uses an infrared light beam to detect lights of wavelengths that are reflected off muscles and bones and tissue, the body. And basically, it was invented by the USDA to take body composition of animals, just animals and livestock. And it assumes that their body composition is equal to our body composition. Okay? And this is very unreliable too. And it's also very affected by your nutrition, by menstrual cycle can be affected too, and also by your exercise, and your body shape too, and your body shape. So, as you see, the three ones right here, the ones most suitable to recommend. Skin Caliper is very easy. These ones that we spoke about earlier usually use electricity. Okay? Anything that's using electricity or infrared is not very reliable. Okay? So, I know it's very easy to use this, and you can get a lot of people's body fat. You can get a person's body fat every 10 seconds. So if you're in a gym and you're trying to make a lot of money and take a lot of people's body fat, then you will do that. But as far as being a professional personal trainer, and you want your clients to think highly of you and that you care about them, then I would not use this. Okay? So I like to use these. It's usually noted as the second best way, and really it's what people want, because they don't care too much about the body fat that is underneath their muscle because you can't see it. You can only see the body fat that is right here. So really, as far as aesthetics goes, this is a great tool to use. This one only costs 15 bucks. Okay? And you can use it with the tape. And they have a lot of different protocols. ACSM has their own protocol. If you've been to chiropractic school, they have a lot of their different protocols. There's many different protocols to use in different sites to find in the body, and ways to average them out. Okay? So another thing to note is that if a person has a lot of body fat, let's say that close to a third of their weight is their body fat or more, then it's probably not a good idea to use these skin calipers to take in their body fat. They just need to lose some weight, and they could, go walking or do some light weight activity and do activities that aren't too jarring on their joints, or they can lose a lot of weight. And then once they're in a range where they're just like overweight, like middle overweight, then you can start taking their body fat. But also to note, though, the BMI, the body mass index, is really replaced now by the body fat, taking body fat tests, because body mass index is outdated. It uses meters squared divided by kilograms to assess whether one is a high risk or low risk or moderate risk for heart disease, which would also be a risk factor for cancer. And since our body types have changed so much in the last 50 years, we are heavier. We have more muscle now than before. So many people would be considered high risk for this or moderate risk, and that's not the case. Okay? So I really appreciate it. I look forward to you enriching yourself more and helping many, many people in the world, because 2/3 of our nation is overweight. And 1/3 of all kids are obese. So we seriously need your help in making this a better world. And I'm Chris with Natural Body Man. Remember, always have fun and exercise.